I'm Caitlin, one of the youth librarians at Skokie Public Library, and joining me today is...
Desi.
It's that time of the year. Big changes.
End of summer, back to school, my birthday.
Very important. Also, the sun sets earlier, the leaves are turning colors, and then comes the change that really knocks our socks off.
The time change.
That's right. Every year at 2 a.m. on the first Sunday in November, the clocks roll back an hour, which means that the mornings are brighter.
But the afternoons are darker.
This is what's known as standard time, and it stays like that until the second Sunday in March, when most of us in the United States move our clocks forward an hour, at which point we are on daylight saving time. The idea to manipulate time to save daylight has been kicking around for hundreds of years, but the modern conception of daylight saving time was first officially proposed in 1895 by New Zealand bug scientist George Hudson, who proposed not 1, but 2 hours of daylight savings because he just wanted more time to hang out with his insect pals.
Aww.
Unfortunately, he did not get his wish.
Aww.
But the idea just kept popping up until it finally took hold in the United States during World War I as a way to conserve energy.
It makes sense, because the longer it's light out, the longer you can stay outside and play.
That's what Congress thought in 1918 when they passed the first Law to Save Daylight. Of course, you can only move your clock forward in the summer.
Otherwise, those winter mornings would be really, really dark.
Which is why we spring forward in March and we fall back in November. Get it? Because of the seasons?
Nice.
Well, not everyone thinks so, believe it or not. So, the Law to Save Daylight was passed in 1918, but there are still a couple of states who have chosen to stay on standard time year-round.
I get it. Changing clocks twice a year is weird. But then again, time is something we kind of made up, right?
Huh?
What I mean is that time happens no matter what. But humans made up ways to measure it.
I see. Yes. Well, days and nights make sense. You can definitely measure those.
Yes, based on the Earth's rotation. But hours and minutes and stuff is where it gets a little weird. Like, why hours? Why are 60 minutes an hour? And don't get me started on seconds.
I see your point.
And then twice a year we are just going to mess with the clocks?
Well, there's some science behind it. Let's talk about why there's more sunlight in the spring and less in the winter. We know that the Earth rotates around the sun, and each rotation is a year. You might think that rotation is why we have seasons.
But you'd be wrong. Seasons are actually caused by something called the axial tilt.
The Earth does spin around the sun, but it's tilted 23.5 degrees. This is how we get summer and winter. Let me illuminate. Here is an extremely adorable drawing of the Earth, and here is the equator.
The equator is the line in between the North and South Pole that splits the globe in half.
My son, can you hold the sun? The sun shines most directly on the equator, which gives it lots of light and heat. If the Earth didn't spin on an angle, all of the sun's energy would always be focused directly on the equator, so nice and hot there and cold at the North and South Pole. Not a lot of fluctuation.
But because the angle of the Earth changes as it spins, when we're tilted toward the sun, we get lots of light, so it's nice and warm. But as we spin away from the sun, it gets really cold.
Exactly. The northern hemisphere is tilted most directly toward the sun in June and away from the sun in December. Summer and winter.
Cool.
Not in July, it's not.
Right, but let's go back to time for a second. The ancient Egyptians were some of the first people to start keeping track of time, and one of the tools they used to measure it was a sundial.
Yep, looking at shadows to gauge where we are in the day.
So, noon is the time where the sun is highest in the sky, right?
Right.
But what about during daylight saving time?
That's a great question, and one that we can actually test. Thank you for that brilliant segue into our project. Today, we're going to make our own sundials. Here are the supplies you'll need for this project. A piece of paper or a round paper plate, a bowl for tracing, some crayons or markers, scissors, a pencil, and some clay, tape, or wax to hold your stick up. You can also just plant a stick in a sunny space outside and keep an eye on how the location of the shadow changes throughout the day.
The first thing you'll need is a circle. If you're not using a plate, trace a circle onto the paper, then cut it out.
Stand the pencil up in the middle of your plate. This is called a gnomon. If you're in the northern hemisphere like we are, tilt your gnomon a little to the north.
Put your sundial outside in a bright spot. At the top of each hour, mark the spot on your circle where the sun is hitting.
Keep marking where the sun hits every hour. Make sure your sundial stays in the same place and you can test your results on the next sunny day. To your question about where the sun appears at noon during daylight saving time, what do you think?
Well, we could set our clocks forward an hour because we kind of made up time, right? But we can't fast forward the Earth's rotation, can we?
Not that I know of.
So I think the sundial is going to say it's 11 a.m. when our clocks say it's noon.
You are correct, sir. And that is daylight saving time. Make sense?
I guess as much sense as 60 seconds in a minute.
Well, you know what I always say.
Do you really need all those sticks?
Ugh, sticks! And also, the best way to learn a new concept is with a catchy song. If you sing a catchy song,
You'll never get it wrong.
we love the sunshine. We want some more time to bask in your sweet golden rays. We use our powers to play with ours and keep the winter dark away. No need to fear it. Comes twice a year. Hate it or think that it's sublime. We change our clocks to conserve the light through daylight saving or standard time.
Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today, junior chronologists.
Until next time, we'll be counting the seconds.
Whatever those are.